name is Rupa Mota, and I am going to be presenting this wonderful award to a very special Kathak artist today here in the beautiful city of Boston. This is as part of the Vrindrani Awards for the Lasya. We're looking forward to a wonderful interview, and I'm not going to give you the name just yet. You can start guessing until then, but we'll be revealing the answer very shortly. Hi everyone, this is Rupa Mota, and I am here with the very talented Eshani Sathe, a leading Kathak exponent, and she's one of the recipients for the Vrindrani Awards presented by the Lasya. So before we begin talking about your background, I wanted to ask you, what is your perspective on Kathak, and can you tell us a little bit about it for those who don't know what Kathak is?
For sure. Thank you so much for having me over, and it is great to talk to people like you, and I feel lucky to be a recipient of this award. Talking about Kathak, Kathak originated as a form of storytelling back in the temples in India, and the more we evolved with different cultures, different traditions, different emperors in the country, it turned out to be more of a storytelling form for the entire masses, not just for entertainment, but also putting forth the values from the Vedas, from the Upanishads, and from our epics. And I think Kathak has evolved through the Mughal era, inclusive of all the new music and semi-classical music that came in trend along with it. Thus, I feel as art form that we live in.
That's right. I think it gained in popularity. So I think it's one of the art forms that's from northern India, and it's connected with so many people around the world. So for you, what drew you to Kathak?
I think my mom's a Kathak dancer. I got lucky that way. So as a baby, I remember my first glimpses of Kathak used to be just sitting in my mom's class and, watching dancers after dancers, hours after hours. And I started dancing at the age of 3. I think I got lucky in that case. But I took up Kathak professionally at the age of around 21, 22. And I think what drew the most for me towards Kathak was the fact that I could express myself the best in Kathak.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful mix of poetry and music and different instrumentation, and the amount of literature that is used in Kathak, which is Hindi and Braj and nowadays even English, I guess, sometimes. That mode of expression really drew me in.
And I think your background is also in literature, right? You studied that and did that. So for you, this was a way to combine both. So for you, do you engage any of your literary epics that you studied in college into your work? So how do you combine the two?
I actually did it the other way around. So for my thesis in the second year of my master's in literature, I actually chose the topic of women in Indian epic dramas, because
that's wonderful.
Yeah, because as Kathakars, we portray Radha, we portray Draupadi, we portray Mandodari, so many female characters from our Indian epics, that I wanted more English literature to be based on what these women stand for and how the characters were developed in the epics. Yeah. So I think it's vice versa. I've done some amount of English poetry in Kathak as parts of my production. So that insight into literature of English and the English music, and combined with Indian music with it, I think it's a fabulous amalgamation that I can explore.
Exactly. And right now, women empowerment is such a pressing issue, something that's globally recognized. So I think as artists, it's our duty to also put that forward. So for you, I think one of your biggest works was actually on the female energy, on Shakti, right? That got over, I think, 450,000 plus views. So for you, what was the thought process behind that? So were you thinking about women empowerment? What were you thinking in terms of how to depict that to the masses?
I feel women are portrayed as the weaker being, right?
Yeah.
Now, biology is one thing, but I think the feminine energy that we call Shakti in Sanskrit is something which surpasses everything. Women are birth givers, women are housemakers, women are society makers. And that intrinsic energy of the divine, the feminine divine, I think that really spoke out to me from this particular vocabulary that is the lyrics of the song. And I'd heard the song as a child from my mother, who had composed it back in the time when I think I was 7 or 8. So when I thought of creating something for YouTube, like a proper production for YouTube, this is what I think I could relate to it the most. And I felt like that bountiful feminine energy needs to be expressed.
That's right. I guess your mom's Shakti carried over in you too, so you just carried it forward. So I think when we think about Indian mythology, we always think of the Trinity. So everyone thinks of Shiva and Vishnu and Brahma first. But I think when we go further back, they're supposed to have evolved from Ma herself, from Shakti Ma. And that part always gets ignored. So I think for someone like you who's in the arts to push that forward and remind people that Shakti is the main strength was a wonderful opportunity. So for you, also, in terms of more of your choreographies, where do you want to see yourself going with that? Do you want to focus more on women empowerment, or what social issues do you want to bring to light?
I think arts are a great way to express, whether it is expression in terms of vocabulary, in terms of non-vocabulary, in terms of just movement or music which does not have any words. I think arts have, be it painting or music or dance, has the power to do that. And a few topics which have definitely intrigued me is the basic thought of integrity, be it in terms of caste or religion or preferences that people have, or us as a society. When we call India a secular nation, can we represent that when we create art form without having to title it as a Hindu piece or as a Hindu cultural piece?
Yes, to remove labels from the arts in a way, so you want to focus on too, while still retaining that mindset that this is Kathak, this is Bharatanatyam, but kind of bring it all together.
Absolutely. And I think what intrigues me the most is Kathak being an art form which originates from Krishna and Shiva, which are Hindu mythology. Our costumes, the vocabulary, the instruments that we use are primarily Persian influenced. The sarangi, the israj, the ghazals or the tumris that we perform. And we don't realize it, that it's a beautiful amalgamation of both the cultures. So
it's one of those art forms and dance forms that is actually secular, has a little bit of everything in the world.
Absolutely. So I think to be able to portray that feeling, that mix of both consciously, and letting the audience know that, we are equally influenced by both the cultures, and it is so beautiful when there's an amalgamation, if we accept it the way it is.
So I think for you, the message is also of acceptance, to carry that forward, to show that even when you're talking about Shakti, you're talking about the acceptance that women need in society as well. So I think that's going to be something that carries forward for you in all your pieces, is to make sure there's acceptance and we perpetuate that everything is secular and we are one. So I think that's great to see. So for you, did you ever want to learn any of the other dance styles too? So did you try Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, any of the others, or has Kathak just drawn you in?
So as a teenager, I tried my hands at contemporary and salsa. It has been my lifelong urge by now to learn Odissi.
Yes,
and I have
gaining in popularity.
So I have loved it for years now. Like I remember the first time I watched Vidushi Sujata Mohapatra ji performing Odissi in person the first time, and I felt like I went to some other planet watching that. And it's been on my bucket list for so long to learn Odissi, but hopefully.
Well, now you're in Boston, we can take classes together. We'll do Odissi next.
Absolutely.
But for you, since you've also had global performances, what has the response to Kathak been in different locations? So do you see there's a difference in the US versus India, or has there been pretty much the same response to Kathak as you go?
It is more surprising because I get asked this question a lot, and the most common answer is that it is treated as much more respectable outside of India. In terms of how the artists are treated, how the showcase of the productions or the artist is, and with what respect the whole treatment around the art form and the artist both is, I think it is, especially in Europe and of course USA, Canada, I feel it is much more respected and looked up upon.
More of the Western audiences know it, and I think they can connect to it more easily for some reason. I think that also, since a lot of the Western dance forms came from Kathak too, like if you look at flamenco, that's supposed to be how derived from Kathak. So then maybe those steps relate to them a little bit better. Do you think that could be part of it?
I think they look at the art form just as an art form without any biases of where it comes from, what language it uses, what is it Hindu, is it Muslim, is it a particular culture. They can look at the art form just as art, and I think that makes them respect the art form more. And I think our classical art forms do have the power and the ability, because of the way they have been processed for generations, to be able to speak out without the barriers of language. Understanding on that level is possible.
I think that's a great way of putting it, because I think our language as artists is the visual aspect of the whole production, and that's something that audiences will always connect to, especially when done right from an artist such as yourself, who can truly transcend to the audience and connect.
I truly hope to do that.
I think you have it. I think that's the reason you're getting this award too. You've connected with so many audiences, and There's been a change now, obviously, since the pandemic. So for you as an artist who obviously, when you do a live performance, you're feeding off the energy of the audience. It's a whole different vibe. How did you adapt during this time to the pandemic? Because that's an unavoidable question these days.
You know, we want to dance and we want to express, and I think artists are very adaptable. That way, I think we were the easiest or the fastest ones to adapt to technology and Zoom and Skype. So I used to teach students in Canada, US, even when I lived in India, over Skype. Performances, as you said, is a completely different thing. But I think it added on. Like, I was anyway doing YouTube, so I was creating content digitally anyway. But to do like full-fledged 20-minute performances and to just use like 1 or 2 cameras and doing retakes and then the edit process, I think it gave me a whole different perspective of how the art form can also be translated to a digital medium. And it's really beautiful even that way, as long as you know how to use your tools.
That's true, because I think these days it pushes artists to be more creative. I think you have to think about everything, and like even today you're pretty much production, you're doing video. I think artists have had to take on more roles thanks to the pandemic. So I think it's given us more skills and made everyone stay up to date with this. So even in terms of that, then how do you deal with the line between tradition and modernity? Because I think these days, when you're on a YouTube platform, it's a global audience, you're not going to have the same group of people watching that you would have, let's say, in a performance, those who are already aware of the art form. So how do you want to approach that? Do you think that you need to modernize a little bit, or should you still stay rooted in the traditional aspects?
I think it's like my Guruji says, that any art form is constantly evolving. So if you call it contemporary or you call it modern, it has been evolving. Like the Kathak that we danced 20 years back is not the Kathak we dance today. It's been changing in a very subtle way. So the subtlety of it has transcended a certain barrier. Our ground roots are the same. Our vocabulary is going to stay the same, but maybe our hand movements are different based on how we talk and how we move today. So I feel that contemporarization, if I may use the word, is anyway happening in Kathak. What we maybe need to do is use more subjects, use more topics which need to be spoken about, which people want to converse over, as we spoke earlier, of acceptance and of integrity and secularism. And integrate them in our dance forms other than just falling back on Krishna and Shiva, and maybe use those same principles and their teachings, but in a way that is more approachable and understandable with the audiences today.
That's true. I think that's a wonderful way of looking at it. I think that we're always going to have those stories, and those stories are always based on values in any case. So those are the values we need to carry forward and continue to spread this art form. So for you, where do you want to see yourself in Kathak? What do you want to represent as a Kathak artist? So in terms of your legacy, if someone were to ask you, what's the legacy you want to be remembered by, what would you say that is?
I don't know if we've figured that out yet. One thing that I definitely resolved probably 5 or 6 years back was that there is this beautiful legacy of my Guruji, which is Pandit Kundalal Gangani ji, his son Rajendra Gangani ji. So that is a beautiful legacy which I think I'm trying to absorb and learn and trying to reproduce in that lineage. And of course there's the legacy of my mother, which is Kathak Nritya Mandir, which is our institute and dance company. So working under these two big streams and trying to spread the message, spread the art form in the best, most purest, most relatable manner. I think that is my life's aim. From what I can see now. And I think that truly gives me the kind of satisfaction, peace and happiness that I am looking for, or we look for as a human being.
Exactly.
That would be about it.
I think that's wonderful, because I think especially for you having 2 different lineages and one being your own mom, that's a lot of pressure on you too to carry that forward.
Yes, in a way, absolutely, you're right.
So what does your mom actually thought about your current productions and your collaborations? And I know you worked with major companies too, like Indian Raga and all these other productions. What is she thought? What's in her opinion about your dancing?
I think she's always trained me to be a very individualist artist, or an individual personality in my own. So when I looked at these mediums which are separate than the traditional methods of presentation. She was a little curious as to how it's going to pan out. Will you be wasting your time investing in studying digital content making and all of that? But once I experimented a little bit, obviously before editing a video, before putting anything out, she looks at the takes, she'll tell me that, this movement can be captured in a different way, maybe use a different edit. I feel she's adapted really well.
Every movement, every blink of the eye, every hand gesture, everything has a reason, and there's so much you can learn from that. So for you as an artist, what are some of the lessons you would share with the audience or upcoming artists?
My Guruji told me when I was very young was that the deeper that you go into your art form, the higher up the art form is going to take you. So do not go after shows, do not go after views, do not go after followers. All of these are very subjective, temporary things. Try to really go into the art form, try to really go and see where did the art form come from? Why is this movement a certain way? Why is this thing called a Gatmikas or a Jatiswaram or a Tillana? Where does the vocabulary come from? What have the earlier teachings been like 10 years back, 50 years back? So the deeper you go, the higher above you will rise, and the larger wings you get to fly your own path. That is what I can share from, because I think that changed my perspective completely, to not run for shows or performances or names and titles and awards. That'll come anyway, as long as you're a good artist, that'll anyway come, but to keep the focus more on the art form and not just the platform where the art will be presented eventually.
Okay, because I think as artists, we're always learning. It's not a journey that ends. There's no full stop. I think we always have to keep pushing ourselves, continue learning. And with so many talented artists out there these days, I think we can expand our own vocabulary, studying them, studying the background, like you said, knowing our roots and the history behind it. So speaking of awards, today you're being presented with Vrindrani Awards. The Lasya presented this, a Vrindrani Award for you, for Kathak. So how do you feel about receiving this wonderful award from this platform?
I think last year I've been in on and off touch with for at least a year now, and my students have performed for the organization. I have absolute respect for the kind of work they are doing, and it feels, I feel privileged to be standing here today with you, being interviewed.
I feel privileged to be next to you too. I think this is a lifelong friendship now.
Absolutely, I truly mean it, and I definitely want to thank them, not for just bringing the series of awards, but to be able to appreciate artists for the work that they've done without asking for anything, just pure appreciation, where they want to promote the right kind of art, the right kind of artists. And it is tough to have that approach in today's day and world, I think, and there are very few organizations that actually end up doing that. So I'm very happy, and I congratulate them on the fabulous work that they are doing and you're doing. And thank you again for this.
AstroVed. We proudly deliver authentic Vedic solutions and remedy services. Become a member of AstroVed today. Witness a positive shift in your life.
शालिनी मंगले कले मूलनाशिनी हृदि कलश प्रक्षालिनी देवी 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 नमो देवी अनंत रूपिणी नमो देवी अनंत रूपिणी प्रणत पालिनी देवी नमो देवी अनंत रूपिणी नमो देवी नमो देवी नमो देवी अनंत रूपिणी Sani da pa ni sa ga ma pa ma pa ni sa. Sani da pa ni sa ga ma pa ma pa ni sa. Sani da pa ni sa ga ma pa ni sa.
Thank you so much for this wonderful interview, and we'll present her with the award shortly, so stay tuned. Part of the Lasya Vrindrani Awards. I am so privileged and honored to be presenting Eshani Sathe with this beautiful Vrindrani Award for all her work in Kathak.